Hello and welcome to Journey with Jones and the Livingston Parish Library. My name is Amanda Jones. I am the librarian at Live Oak Middle School.
And I'm Kellye Ray, the youth coordinator at the Albany-Springfield Branch.
And today we are going to take a virtual trip to wetland habitats. We're going to show you several links, and if you would like to go back and visit those links on your own, down in the YouTube description, there is a link to this presentation. So you can go back and you can click on all of those links on your own. And I am wearing my alligator hat since we are going to be talking about wetlands, and we are going to be taking a look at the American alligator. So let's get started. Now, we are about to explore wetland habitats. Wetlands can take many forms. They can be called marshes, bogs, mangroves, mudflats, ponds, floodplains. There's so many different names that encompass wetlands. Now, water, in case you're not familiar with what exactly is a wetland is where the water covers most of the soil most of the time. It's going to look very, very wet, so they call it a wetland. So the ground is full of water, and most of the ground is full of water in the soil, and there's water on top. Now, the prolonged presence of water in these types of habitats encourage certain particular kinds of plants and animals specifically for that habitat. Now, wetlands can vary very widely depending on their region. There's a lot of local differences between soil types and types of water, climate, vegetation. There's other factors that can determine different types of wetlands based on human disturbance. But generally, wetlands fall into two categories: coastal, along the coasts, or tidal wetlands and inland near rivers and things like that. So we are going to go take a look at several wetland habitats. The first one we are going to look at is a bald cypress swamp. Let's see, let me get my website straight here. So we are going to take a look at a bald cypress swamp. Now, this website that we're looking at right here is called AirPano. And AirPano is a really cool free website that you can look up all sorts of different locations, and sometimes they have virtual trips. And over here on the side are different pictures. So we're going to look at several different pictures. There is a book icon down here. So if you're looking at this link on your own, you can click the book icon and it will take you to an article. But right now I am going to actually make this larger. Now this is in 360 degrees. So I can zoom all around. This is a bald cypress swamp. And this right here is a cypress tree what we're looking at. And if you're from Louisiana like we are, you're pretty familiar with cypress trees and swamps. These are called cypress knees right here. Now, bald cypress swamps are found all over Louisiana, not just Louisiana though, other locations, but this is a picture. Let's see if we can find another view. Here is another one. So this is in Texas. This is another swamp. Now, swamps can be freshwater, saltwater, or they can be brackish water, which can be a mix of salt and fresh water. So this is a swamp in Texas. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. Let's look at another vantage point. Let's look at this right here. All right, actually that's a fog, so it's kind of dark. So let's look at this picture. So some of the world's largest swamps are found along the Mississippi, which is why we find a lot of swamps in Louisiana. But swamps are wetlands. Now, they're mainly found, or the largest swamps in the world are generally found along the Mississippi, the Amazon rivers, and along the Congo. And swamps are very, very still, stagnant water. A lot of times they have a lot of algae and plant life that you can see growing there in a swamp. So that is a swamp. Now we're going to go and look at a marsh. So let's go visit this marsh. Actually, that is give me 1 second. There we go. There is our marsh that we're going to look at. Okay, so a marsh. How is a marsh different from a swamp? It's not that different. A marsh is a wetland that is dominated by herbaceous rather than woody plants. So you will find some trees in a marsh, but marshes mostly are plants that do not have wood. They're not a woody stem or root. So this is 360cities.net, and this is a panorama of a marsh. And you can zoom in and out. You can look up, you can look down. Let's see, there's the sky. You can look down. So while we're looking here at this marsh, just a few more facts. Marshes provide habitats for a lot of plants, animals, and insects that have adapted to living in flooded conditions. So you would find animals and plants and insects that are specifically live here because they are used to living around water and flooded conditions. They must also have to be able to survive on low oxygen levels, which I did not know. So that is a marsh. Next, we're going to look at a bog in Estonia. You might say to yourself, well, what is a bog? Well, it's a wetland, and it is very similar to swamps and marshes. The only difference is that a bog accumulates peat, and peat is it's dead plant material, basically. A lot of dead plant material, rotting leaves, rotting plant material comes together. Also, a lot of mosses. So that comes together to create peat. So you would find a lot of peat in the bogs. Let's see how close we can zoom up in here. Oh, actually, you can zoom up really close at this one. So you will find a lot of dead plant material and peat in this area right here. Now, bogs occur where the water at the ground surface is acidic. So it's a very acidic type of soil and water found here. This is a bog in Estonia. Bogs are recognized as a specific type of wetland, and a lot of bogs are being turned into preservation centers because they provide a habitat for a lot of animals that are going extinct or endangered. But they also provide a home to caribou, moose, and beaver. So that is a bog. And the last thing we're going to look at is we're going to take a look at the Everglades. We're going to look at the Everglades in Florida. And you can see there's another cypress tree. The Everglades have a lot of cypress trees. Now, you can say, where's the water? Well, here's some water right here. Now, the Everglades are a tropical wetland in Florida. So it is a wetland, but it's not all completely covered in water. There are some dry areas, and it kind of depends on the season. In the rainy season, all of this would be covered in water. In the drier season, you can see the land. But it's an ecosystem not found anywhere else on Florida. The Florida Everglades have a very specific ecosystem that can only be found in the Everglades in Florida, and it's very, very large. Now, it starts at the near Orlando, near Disney World, and follows the Kissimmee River. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. It was named a wetland of importance by the United Nations, and it's pretty massive. Most of the area in the Florida Everglades is a marsh. Not a swamp or a bog, it is a marsh. And approximately 26% of all species of fish, reptiles, birds, and mammals in South Florida are considered exotic, more than any other part of the United States. So those are just a few different examples of wetland habitats. And now we're going to look at the wildlife. And there's some really cool wildlife that you can find in the wetlands. Now, let me get rid of a few links. So wetlands. This is a great website called DK Find Out. And I love this website because they always have wonderful illustrations and pictures, but they also have these little icons you can click on and learn more about these animals. The first one we're going to talk about is the blue heron. And there's a little information right here, great blue heron. You can click on it. You can even test your knowledge about birds right here. So blue heron have gray-blue bodies, which is why they're called blue herons. This is a picture right here. The great blue heron is a large wading bird, and it's common near shores of open water and wetlands, usually in North America and Central America. There are a few blue herons in the Caribbean and in near the Galapagos Islands. It can adapt to pretty much any wetland habitat, though. It's found in a number of fresh and saltwater marshes. So you can find them in swamps and marshes in both fresh and saltwater. The primary food they eat is fish. You can see they have very, very long legs right here. Now, let's see. The primarily eat fish, but they have been known to eat shrimp, crabs, and even rodents. That's kind of gross. So they eat rodents. They will eat some amphibians like frogs. And then I also read that sometimes they're a predator of ducklings. So learn something new every day. I've never seen that in the wild, but apparently that does happen. We are also going to talk about the American alligator, and we are very familiar with alligators here in Louisiana. They are found in the Everglades. So this is a crocodile right here. This is an alligator. An alligator is what you're going to find in a wetland, particularly here in the United States. That's why they're called the American alligator. It's a large reptile found in the southeastern United States. It can be up to 15 feet tall and weigh up to 1,000 pounds. Now, I have been to several reptile farms here in Louisiana, and they've actually had some that were bigger than that. So there are some record-breaking alligators that can get a little larger, but on average, they're about 15 feet and weigh 1,000 pounds. You can see they have a shorter snout than what you would find in a crocodile. They have very powerful claws, strong legs. Now, they are apex predators. They consume fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. They play an active role in the ecosystem because they are predators. They keep some of the populations of the smaller animals in check, and they live in both the water and on land. So those are the alligator and the heron would be two animals that you would find in a wetland. Now we're going to look at a few more. Let's see. Here are some more wetland animals. Let's take a look at the muskrat, which a muskrat to me kind of looks like, it looks a little bit like a nutria rat, which you would see here in Louisiana, but it is not the same thing. It's different. It's a medium-sized semi-aquatic rodent. It has brown fur. You can find it in parts of Europe, Asia, and South America. It's found in wetlands in a wide range of climates and habitats, but mainly in wetland habitats. It's a source of food and fur for humans. So humans do use muskrats in some areas for food and fur. They live in families. They eat fish, frogs, insects, and shellfish, but they also eat cattails. And we're going to look at cattails next. In fact, let's talk about that next. So the next thing we're going to talk about is a cattail. You've probably seen these all over Louisiana. I don't know if any of your relatives are like mine, but my father tried to convince me that was a corn dog growing in the wild and tried to get me to taste it one time. Please do not eat the brown part of a cattail, but did you know you can eat the stalks? So the stalks and roots, the stems actually are editable. So if you're ever stranded in a wetland and you're hungry, you can eat the stems of a cattail. Just don't eat the top part. So the stems are edible. It's like a starch, kind of like a potato. And historians have found ancient civilizations have used it as a starch in foods, in their diets. It is aquatic and semi-aquatic, which means you're going to find it near water all the time. You see a lot of them in ditches and marshes and swamps, ditches that remain wet all the time, things like that. They're frequently eaten by mammals that you would find in the wetlands. But they also are used, a lot of animals will use the stems and stalk, the parts of the cattail to create nesting and resting places. A lot of birds use them in the wetlands. So that is some of the wildlife that you would find in the wetlands. Now, there are some other resources on here. If you're interested, you can go click on this or the video and you can go explore wetlands on your own. Book suggestions. So these 3 books are some of my favorite, and the Livingston Parish Public Library has all 3 of these. We have Petite Pierre and the Floating Marsh, Otters, Snails, and Tadpole Tales, Poems from the Wetlands, and Over in the Wetlands, A Hurricane on the Bayou Story. So all 3 of these can be found at the Livingston Parish Library. And now I'm going to turn it over to Miss Kellye.
Yes, happy to have you here. We're ready for our people to come into the library. We have story time open now, so I'm ready to read every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And we have a take-home craft to do when you leave story time, as well as a grab-and-go craft that you see on the screen. We have 5 crafts prepared and ready for you to just take home with you. And simple supplies of glue or scissors is all you would need to construct the crafts. We'll also have some for July, and that's our bulletin board. We are totally ready for summer. We are also promoting Read and Bead, which is a program where you can do these bead crafts. We'll be doing a lizard, owl, frog. I think it's also a bumblebee and a turtle. So those are some of our wetland animals that we would like to bead as well as read about. And then we also have movie matinees weekly, twice, Wednesdays at 12 and Thursdays at 2. So if you just need something to chill out, get out the house and kind of meet a friend at the library, come join us and have snacks and watch a movie together, and get out the heat. And weekly and daily, we have our scavenger hunt and our story walk and lots of prizes to pick up at your local library. Hopefully, I'll see you at the Albany-Springfield Library. Thank you.
And if you enjoyed traveling with us today with our Journey with Jones and the Livingston Parish Library, we have a trip on cave habitats coming up July 16th and a trip to savanna habitats on July 23rd. All of our Journey with Jones and the Livingston Parish Library videos and presentation links can be found at our Live Oak Middle Library website. They can also be found at the Livingston Parish Library Facebook and Instagram pages. You can follow both the Live Oak Middle Library and the Livingston Parish Library on Facebook and Instagram. We want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we will see you on our next trip. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.